Victory Studios in downtown Little Rock, this is Capitol View.
And good Sunday morning to you. Welcome into Capitol View. I'm Jay Bir. Lawmakers back in D.C. The hot topics continue: healthcare, trade, and the latest buzz on vaping. Joining me from Washington is Congressman Bruce Westerman. And Congressman, we appreciate you coming here. Let's jump right into it. I do want to touch on the United States-Mexico-Canada trade agreement here early on. Do we expect this thing to potentially get ratified by the end of the year?
Hey, Jay, good to be with you. And I would have expected the USMCA to already be ratified. I think the votes are there. I think they've been there for a month or two. It's just getting the bill on the floor of the House to have a vote on it. I think it would be a wide bipartisan vote to pass the USMCA. This is very critical that we get this done. You know, Canada and Mexico traditionally have been our second and third largest trading partners. I think that's actually changed now to where they may be our first and second largest trading partners. But getting this deal done, which again I stress should have already been done, is critical to helping our economy continue to grow. And right behind that, we've got a deal that's been announced with Japan, which is the third largest economy in the world. I was able to spend some time in Tokyo back in August. I know the Japanese are anxious to get this trade deal done. And we can have a much better negotiating position with China once we get these deals with Canada, Mexico, and Japan completed. And we can really, you know, have more strength behind us to confront China on their unfair trade practices, where they steal our technology, where they dump in our markets, and they essentially play by their own rules. You know, they'll sign a trade agreement or go into a trade agreement and then play by their own rules, and we just can't have that anymore.
And I know too in the USMCA there's that poison pill clause, which is kind of, I guess, in an effort to sort of counteract that. Is that right?
You're talking about in the USMCA?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I mean, it's a broad trade agreement with Canada and Mexico, and it touches on a lot of different things, but we want to make sure that our trading partners play by the rules like we play by the rules.
I know it's sort of a big agreement here, touching on a lot of points here, but I know agriculture, kind of one of the key sticking points in terms of effects on Arkansas. I guess just for our audience who may not be familiar, what are some of those big agricultural aspects of the USMCA?
Well, obviously we produce a lot of poultry in Arkansas. We produce a lot of row crops. This would open up markets for our poultry and our row crops. When you're talking about with Canada, it doesn't affect Arkansas as much, but there's some new agreements there on dairy cattle and with beef cattle and all kinds of livestock. Really, this is a strong agreement that'll be good for Arkansas and for rural America.
Absolutely here. Switching gears here, let's get into the Fair Care Act. I know you're really trying to take this on from an insurance perspective. What are you working on with the FCA?
Yeah, the Fair Care Act is a bill that I introduced back in February, something we worked on for over a year and a half. I literally started working on it right after the AHCA failed. It was a Republican attempt to fix our broken health care system. And, you know, if we look back through history, we had the Affordable Care Act, which was done on a partisan basis by Democrats. It hasn't been too successful. We were unsuccessful at getting a partisan bill passed when we controlled the House, the Senate, and the White House as Republicans. So the Fair Care Act is simply looking at what's the best health care policy out there. How do we create a healthcare system where we cover more people, where we lower the cost, we protect pre-existing conditions, and we make the best utilization of the taxpayers' dollars that are going to be spent on healthcare. And I think we do that. We do it through addressing the prescription drug cost crisis. We introduce more competition into the market there. Well, we break up insurance monopolies, we break up hospital monopolies, and we set Medicare on a path to be sustainable over the long run. Plus, we incorporate a lot of ideas on innovation, and these are bipartisan ideas. Some of these policy issues in the Fair Care Act were bills we actually passed on a bipartisan basis out of the House in the last Congress. Some of the prescription drug bills that or issues that I've covered in the bill are actually standalone bills that I've co-sponsored with Democrats in the House. So it's an approach to actually make health care better for Americans. It's the antithesis of what Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren and all of them are talking about with so-called Medicare for all, single-payer, big government, socialized medicine, which I don't think that's what consumers in the U.S. want. I don't think they want to see a Medicaid system that everybody's forced to join, or something similar to the VA, where it gets rid of all private insurance, it gets rid of the VA, gets rid of Medicare and Medicaid, and puts everybody into one big government-run system.
So is that kind of one of the things, because I knew you wanted to expand on the Obamacare exchanges here, kind of bring in some of that private health insurance. Is maybe just interstate health insurance, because I know that's one of the big sticking points for a lot of people, something that could be brought up?
Yeah, we look at how you sell insurance across state lines, much like you do with automobile insurance. The exchanges, the market, that's an American idea. It's a free enterprise idea. Unfortunately, the way they were set up in the Affordable Care Act, they were too restrictive. And I think the goal of the Affordable Care Act was to push more people into Medicaid. And if you look at the numbers of the people who got more coverage under the Affordable Care Act, it came through Medicaid expansion. What we want to do is make those markets much more robust. There are about 10 million federal employees on something called the Federal Employees Health Benefits Program. We want to take those 10 million federal employees and put them on the exchanges, not have a special carved out health insurance system for federal employees. We want to take the Medicaid expansion population and move Medicaid back to what it was intended for the aged, the blind, and the disabled, and get more lower income people into the exchanges, and create a guaranteed coverage pool so that nobody loses coverage or benefits because of pre-existing conditions. And it's something that we can do, that I firmly believe will give more people coverage and will lower rates, not just for taxpayers, but for private individuals who are getting their insurance through a group plan or through their employer. Everybody saw their insurance premiums go up when the Affordable Care Act went into place, even though the total percentage of the U.S. population that actually participated in Obamacare was around 7%. The other 93% certainly felt the impact of those policies.
I guess piggybacking off health care and all those sorts of things, vaping, kind of one of the real, I guess, buzzworthy things up there at the Capitol. I know President Trump commenting on it as well. What is trying to be done at the national level when it comes to vaping? Because here in Arkansas, Senator Hendricks passed a bill where they would treat vaping very similar to good old-fashioned cigarettes. So what can we expect here at the national level, if anything, here early on?
Well, I'm not aware of any legislation moving through Congress, but I do know that President Trump and the administration are trying to put regulations in from an administrative standpoint to address the issue. The idea of vaping when it came out was that you would give cigarette smokers an alternative that would be less dangerous, but it appears like the hopes of the benefits of vaping were not as great as they should be, and you get a lot of young people that are vaping, and we've seen some of the serious health concerns resulting in this kind of explosion of people vaping. So I'm hoping that the administration will be able to react quickly to this and get some good rules in place, especially to protect underage people, kids that shouldn't be doing this in the first place. There needs to be some changes there.
Do you think, too, maybe that this is something that we're all just maybe overreacting to initially here? I know some people have called it sort of a national health crisis. Is it something that maybe we've blown out of proportion here too early?
Well, we do have a tendency to blow things out of proportion. I mean, there are people who have been dramatically affected in a bad sort of way from vaping. When you get into the case studies and you look at, you know, the e-cigarettes they were using, were they manufactured in the safest ways? The devil's always in the details, but I think we need to get into the details and find out where the problems are and take corrective action.
Always something to talk about up there in the district. Congressional member here from Arkansas, Bruce Westerman. Bruce, we appreciate you being on.
Jay, good to be with you. Have a great day.
All right, appreciate you. And we will be right back after this. You're watching Capitol View Sunday morning.
Let the competitive edge of J. Oliver's Jewelry Studio help you find the perfect diamond. Select a ring from our inventory or bring us a picture and let J. Oliver's custom design it right before your eyes. From the perfect diamond to the perfect design, count on J. Oliver's Jewelry Studio.
It's the kind of game you clear your schedule for and stock up for. It's the kind of game with so much star power, it's amazing you can look directly at it. Cowboys, Saints, all eyes on Sunday Night Football.
America loved the premiere of Bluff City Law.
You're my daughter. I don't know if we'll work as colleagues or as a family, but we have a chance to change the world.
Bluff City Law, new Monday on NBC.
This is the Chevy Silverado with the world's first invisible trailer.
Invisible trailer?
Hop in. Silverado offers an optional technology package with up to 15 different views, including one enhanced view that makes your trailer appear invisible.
Wow, that's pretty sweet. Cool.
Where's the trailer though?
Or get 0% financing for 72 months plus $750 cash allowance on this Silverado All-Star without optional tech package or enhanced invisible view when you finance with GM Financial.
Attention Gooseberry Lake home buyers and real estate investors. Emerald Isle Lake Home and online personal property auction Wednesday, October 2nd at 11 a.m. at 50 Emerald Lane in Gooseberry, Arkansas, with a custom-built 5,055 square foot, 3-bedroom, 3-bath, single-level home on a large 1.1-acre level lot with an attached 1,050 square foot RV garage in the beautiful landing at Emerald Isle Subdivision on Gooseberry Lake. Also selling household furnishings and much more. Wednesday, October 2nd at 11 a.m. Go to WilsonAuctioneers.com.
Sold it.
Celebrate with jewelry from J. Oliver's Jewelry Studio. We can now design your jewelry right before your eyes. Why buy the ordinary when J. Oliver's can create the extraordinary? Take something old and remake it new again. J. Oliver's, your full-service custom jewelry studio.
You're watching Capitol View, Sunday morning talk focused on the political scene in Arkansas.
I can say with authority the Trump administration's actions undermine both our national security and our intelligence and our protections of the whistleblowers, more than both.
They have been investigating this president before he even got elected. They have voted 3 times on impeachment on this floor. Twice they voted before one word of the Mueller report came back.
And welcome back to Capitol View. The White House and its allies continue to fight back against accusations of impeachable acts by President Trump during his interactions with the president of Ukraine. Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi announcing an impeachment inquiry on Tuesday. Acting Director of National Intelligence Joseph McGuire testifying before Congress on Thursday. And now we have Washington correspondent Jessi Turnure joining us here with the latest. And Jessi, this thing just seems to be evolving very quickly, very rapidly. What can we say about this thing in its broad scope?
Right, so Jay, like you said, lots of new developments really every single day, but kind of what hasn't changed is the political rhetoric around it. Democrats and Republicans are kind of sticking to their own talking points for the most part. So Democrats are saying this impeachment inquiry is only made stronger each and every day as more of these facts come out, more information comes out. Republicans just keep saying this only adds fuel to President Trump's fire, that they don't have anything to go on. Right now, it does sound like that the House did reach its magical number of 218 votes that at least supports an impeachment inquiry. Moving forward, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to pursue articles of impeachment, but that is an important number to have. As far as the Senate goes, the Senate is the one that would convict a president. That has actually never happened in our nation's history, and so there's not a whole lot hinging on that, especially because it's a Republican-controlled chamber. Doesn't doesn't look like there could be the votes there, but the reason why Democrats kind of want to push it toward the Senate anyway is to just make sure that those Republicans have to say on the record which way that they decide if it ends up going that far. But still, we're in the very early stages of this in the impeachment inquiry. Nothing is official as of yet. They're just doing their investigations.
All right, good clarification there. All right, let's switch gears here. You talked actually earlier last week about some of the auto manufacturing, the tariffs that are involved with that. I know tariffs have been sort of a big deal in probably about the past year here. What can we see here with at least in the terms of the auto industry and tariffs and everything with that?
Yeah, so we actually saw something kind of interesting on Capitol Hill this week. You saw all these different car manufacturers from across the country that usually compete against each other, together fighting for one common cause, asking the president to not impose these tariffs on automakers and auto parts. It would be about a 25% tariff. And so while they were saying that in D.C., he was actually in New York City at the UN, and he did strike a deal with Japan, but these tariffs, as far as the automakers go, that wasn't in there. And so there is still uncertainty moving forward, and these automakers are concerned that there could be more than 500,000 jobs at stake. And what President Trump is doing here, he's using a law that's on the books that allows him to impose these trade restrictions based on national security. And these car manufacturers brought that up and questioned that. They said, how is our business in any way doing that? And there's actually some legislation that a Democrat from Alabama is trying to push through that would take that power away from the president to impose those trade restrictions based on a basis of national security and instead divert that to the Department of Defense. That doesn't look like something that could eventually make its way to the president's desk, of course, but there's at least a push there to try to change that.
And also, speaking too of tariffs, I know things have been a little contentious with China in recent months, but China now dropping tariffs on soybeans, obviously a big deal here for Arkansans, buying 20 million tons, I should say, of soybeans, kind of as a good faith act, kind of reopening discussions here. What do we know here on the latest with China, soybeans, and also pork involved with that too?
Yeah, definitely. So this is an active good measure by the Chinese government to say, maybe we are interested in negotiating a little more. Those next talks are set for early this next month. And so the Trump administration has been happy with this. They've been saying that this is obviously a good step. But when you look at this, it sounds like a big deal from the face value, but farmers that have been really feeling this pinch are not feeling any sort of relief as of yet. Even though they did make what would seem like big purchases, are actually not that big in the large scale of things if the tariffs from the Trump administration were not already imposed. And so this is a good first step. That's what the Trump administration is saying, but they're really kind of looking forward to these next negotiations to see what can happen. And kind of all of this talk with impeachment and tariffs kind of all goes hand in hand. We have this happening with China. We have the USMCA, which Democrats and Republicans, both sides of the aisle, are saying we need to come together and pass this for farmers. But Trump right now is kind of hinging all of this, saying Speaker Pelosi is instead distracted with trying to impeach him with this inquiry when Congress needs to instead look at all of these other things that still have to happen before the end of the year.
I guess what's the likelihood of this China deal sort of being struck within the year?
President Trump at the UN this week was saying it could happen sooner than you think, but at the same time, I feel like that's kind of a changing dialogue, too, that you see. And so while a lot of people would like to say, you know, it's looking like it could move that way, there's still a lot could happen, and definitely still a lot on the table, too. So by the end of the year, I'm not so sold on that.
I guess we'll find out here. I do want to take a personal point of privilege here with our audience. This is a magical moment here for me and Jessi. We actually go way back here, covering the old ARPX down here in Arkansas, and here we are.
Yes, I know. We had all these like car conversations about politics. It was like our version of car karaoke, almost carpool karaoke.
That's right.
We'd have a little bit of karaoke too, I'm sure. But yeah, this was fun to kind of make our political discussions that we would have around the Capitol official.
Yeah, super official. It was almost a car version of Capitol View here.
Yeah.
Jessi, thanks for jumping on with me here, and we'll definitely do it again soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, Jay.
All right, thank you. When we come back, we will take a look at your top political headlines. You're watching Capitol View on Sunday morning.
Sonic's got all my fair faves.
Cheddar peppers, 99-cent corn dogs, Oreo a la mode.
I love the fair. All the prizes you can win.
Totally. Did you win all those?
Winning's for suckers. I bought these.
Hurry in. Fair faves start at 99 cents and order ahead for happy hour anytime.
No mess is too much for the boys in blue.
Uh-oh, I made a mess.
Even if you have a messy Maya, we can make everything look good as new. When Messy Maya strikes at your house, you know who to call.
The boys in blue.
Chevy's the only brand
to earn J.D. Power Dependability Awards across cars, trucks,
and SUVs 4 years in a row.
Since more than 32,000 real people
took the survey that decided these awards.
It was only right that you hear the good news from real people
like us.
Get 0% financing for 72 months on all Tahoe models when you finance with GM Financial. See your Arkansas Best Chevy dealer.
I pledge to never use tobacco.
I pledge to never use tobacco.
To never use tobacco.
I pledge to never use tobacco. Because I want to be the brightest kid in the world.
Because I want to be the best me that I can be.
Because I want to live up my wildest dreams.
Because when I grow up, I want to be big and strong. Choose today to live tobacco-free. For more information, visit tobaccofreekids.org.
Hi, I'm Missy Gibson. At John Gibson Auto Sales, we offer our customers the opportunity to buy almost any vehicle. We have over 900 cars, trucks, SUVs, motorcycles, ATVs, campers, performance trailers, and boats. We will finance your purchase in-house regardless of your credit history. You can actually make your purchase from home or on the go. Simply go online to johngibsonautosales.com and take a virtual tour of our inventory. We call it shopping made easy. See you soon at John Gibson Auto Sales, in person or online.
Hi folks, Bart Sherwood with Sherwood Tractor. My grandson Oliver and I love to ride heavy-duty horses, side-by-sides, and tractors. If you want heavy-duty, buy a Mahindra, the #1 selling tractor in the world. We have all sizes of Mahindra tractors, implements, and side-by-sides. What's in your barn?
Sonic's got all my fair faves.
Cheddar peppers, 99-cent corn dogs, Oreo a la mode.
But there's no chicken on the Fair Faves menu, right?
No. Why do you ask?
No reason.
You're safe.
Hurry in. Fair faves start at 99 cents and order ahead for happy hour anytime.
You're watching Capitol View, Sunday morning talk focused on the political scene in Arkansas.
And welcome back to Capitol View. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo announced sanctions on 5 Chinese individuals and on another 6 Chinese companies. Secretary of State made the announcement at the United Against Nuclear Iran Summit in New York City last week. He said the U.S. plans to not only punish companies, but also their executives for working with Iran.
We're taking new action to disentangle the IRGC from the Iranian economy. The United States will intensify our efforts to educate countries and companies on the risks of doing business with IRGC entities, and we will punish them if they persist in defiance of our warnings.
Secretary Pompeo said the more Iran lashes out, the more sanctions will continue to tighten. An Ohio mayor takes her fight against assault weapons to Capitol Hill. Dayton Mayor Nan Whaley sat in front of the House Judiciary Committee Wednesday. She, along with a panel, spoke to the committee about stronger gun control. Now, during her testimony, Whaley recounted the night 9 people died in less than a minute in Dayton, and demanding the committee to do away with assault-style weapons.
In those 32 seconds, the shooter's weapon did exactly what it was designed to do: kill or injure as many people as possible in the shortest amount of time. It was a weapon designed to inflict maximum damage to human beings. It left a trail of destruction, not on some foreign battlefield, but down a historic brick street in Dayton, Ohio.
Climate protesters caused traffic chaos Monday in the nation's capital by blocking intersections across the district. Activists said disrupting the Monday morning commute was the only way they could make lawmakers understand the importance of a changing climate.
Might be disrupting business as usual today, but this is temporary, but the crisis we're facing is really real.
But with the House out of session and the Senate not convening until Wednesday, many of the lawmakers they were hoping to sway weren't even in D.C. President Trump did go to a climate summit meeting at the UN General Assembly. Despite the largely peaceful nature of this protest, police say there were 32 that were arrested. We're back to wrap it up after this. You're watching Capitol View Sunday morning.
Tell
Tell your story when you wear a one-of-a-kind Ronaldo design from Keepsakes. Inspiring Ronaldo bracelets symbolize your story of love, friendship, and precious memories. Shop our premier selection of Ronaldo designs for the best quality and prices at Keepsakes Jewelry.
I like to go, I like to see. From coast to coast, you come with me. We feel it now, the energy.
Finance the Infiniti QX80 for 0% APR for 60 months. Plus, get a $2,500 summer bonus at your local Infiniti retailer.
Memories begin with a gift from Keepsakes. Your wedding rings will showcase your love and devotion. We take pride in personally selecting your diamonds direct from Antwerp, Belgium, home of the best diamonds in the world. For the best quality and prices, buy your diamonds from Keepsakes.
You're watching Capitol View, Sunday morning talk focused on the political scene in Arkansas.
And that's it for this week's Capitol View. Don't forget, you can now take Capitol View on the go. Full episodes are on KARK.com and the KARK app. And we're back with an all-new Capitol View next week. Thanks for joining with us this week. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.